I'm going to pull up the curtain and actually show you how I take a wedding design from a concept and an idea and a rough discussion with a client into a design book and into the actual wedding day. So today I am super excited to literally take you and show you the process of the design for this wedding. Yeah, this wedding was our most stunning wedding of 2023. It's our most viewed, looked at, commented, all the things. Like, this wedding was absolutely everything. It was a real portfolio piece, and we loved designing and working on this wedding with these clients at this venue with all the supplier team. It really was an absolute dream, and I can't wait to show you how we put this together and pulled this design to life. If you're new here, guys, I'm Lauren, wedding planner, owner of Bluebird Creative and Bride Academy, and I provide a weekly dose of wedding planning goodness as well as digital downloads. So I dare you, if you love wedding content, if you're planning your wedding and you wanna make sure that you're getting all the tips and tricks for free, I dare you to subscribe. Right, guys, let's hop into this week's video where I'm gonna take you through the process of seeing the design come to life. Okay guys, so our design process starts with an initial call, a design call with our client. It's part of our full planning process. It's kind of phase 2, as we like to call it. We start with plan, then we move into the design phase. And when we start the design phase, we do our inspiration call. So we chat through how the client is envisaging their wedding day, anything that they're particularly drawn to. We go through their current Pinterest board just to get a vibe of what they're sort of liking at the moment, what they're really feeling drawn to. And we don't do this too early on in the wedding planning process because trends change, people feel a bit differently about certain things as the year goes on. So we tend to start this at about 10 months out. That way we're working on something fresh that the client is definitely liking and they're definitely going to still like come the wedding day. So with this particular client, we wanted to understand what they were drawn to. And initially, the initial concept and sort of key focus and words were wildflowers, laid back yet elegant, with a nod to the Mediterranean, and in keeping with the venue design as well, which was very much, it's actually a modern building, but it looks like a very old-fashioned building. It almost is like an Italian villa, but it's in the middle of Bath. It is just sensational. So what we needed to do to start with was to build the colour palette. Now, as you can see, I'm going to pull up the design book here for you. So this is where we started. Once we had our call with the client, we then build the design book and we start with colour. We always start with the colour palette. It's the foundation of the design. We talk colour palette, we talk textures. So for this particular client, we were looking at whites with blues. It's that real Mediterranean sort of vibe, like coming in, that really vibrant blue in with the whites. But then the client was really keen on pulling some coral in, and then we added in some orange and some kind of lemon as well, just to kind of really freshen it up and make it zesty and keep that sort of Mediterranean touch. When it comes to the textures, that's where we were going to put in that slightly relaxed vibe and also make it sure that it was in keeping with the venue itself. So we were looking at woods, we were looking at seagrass, we were looking at kind of Mediterranean like tiles, that kind of vibe, as well as gold. So we'll always look at like what metal are we going to use, and we decided on gold for this, which worked out perfectly. Once we've got our colours and our textures, we then sort of start to look at the flowers. For Bluebird, flowers are a big part of our design process. Our clients love flowers, we love flowers, so it's always the next port of call because they're always a massive part of our designs. This client in particular wanted to really pull in daisies because they had that white and yellow colour. They also loved cornflowers, that real pop of blue. And then they weren't too fussed on the particular flowers, but they just wanted it to feel really wild and whimsical. Obviously leaning into that wildflower again that we mentioned at the beginning, and also just having a lot of fruit. Now that's not a flower, but we pull that into the floral design, and they wanted fruit galore, absolute fruit galore. So we were talking about sort of pink grapefruits, oranges, lemons. We ended up using kumquats and apricots as well, just really pulling in those different sort of colours and textures. Obviously bearing in mind that when you cut them in half, they give you a different colour as well. So that was a big part of the design. So you can kind of see, like with the flowers here, like the bouquets, kind of what we were looking at in the colour palette. So let me now show you what we ended up, or what the florist ended up creating for the bouquets. So here you can see it's a super beautiful wildflower, really wild and whimsical, white bouquet, little pops of blue and peach in there, but really, really stunning. Then as we go through the design book here, you can see that we then looked at the bridesmaids' dresses. Now this isn't always something that we tend to do with clients, but this one was really super fun. They wanted to include a blue and a white floral print for their bridesmaids, but all mixed match. So we added this in because it really did pull the design together. So let me show you what they ended up wearing in the end. So it really did stick and was in keeping with the design book, but the girls just looked absolutely incredible. Next we move on to the stationery. This was very loose at this initial stage, like when we were designing this. There's almost like two different kind of concepts going on here, and you'll see at the end where we ended up going. But I almost like look back at this part of the design book and I'm like, it's slightly confusing, but we knew where we wanted to head with it. We were kind of like gauging what the client liked and then seeing kind of where we went from there. But you can kind of see that we were talking about using gold frames. We were talking about tags for like the place names and the reserve signs. But we wanted like a modern edge to it, and we wanted to use the sort of the blues, and we wanted flowers, wildflowers tucked in to the cards. It's really interesting to look back at the design book and see kind of how that developed from kind of a few images and ideas, and how it all pulled together, that process and where we ended up. I love looking back at old design books and kind of seeing the end images. So let's see what the stationery actually ended up looking like. So we had little reserve tags, as you can see, for the ceremony. We also had the menu and the place name and the table names, so which really ended up coming together in the end and looked absolutely stunning. They were super delicate. We had to hand sort of poke through all the cornflowers and the wildflowers like for the place names, but it was totally worth it. We really considered the colour of the ribbon and everything. Like, it was really pleased with kind of how it came together, especially as the starting point for the stationery was a little bit loose. The signage was the next stage, and I loved pulling together the signage for this. We created something completely bespoke. As you can see on the design book, we were talking about sort of like these big boards with floral shelves. We ended up taking that route. We had our own bespoke MDF boards made, but with a curved backdrop to sort of keep it quite modern. We painted them white, and then on the actual like window box shelves, we ended up covering them in a sort of a Greek tile wallpaper, and then we used them for the escort cards, which were wild seeds, and we had them all handmade. Like, it was absolutely stunning. It was such a focal piece for the day. The images ended up being amazing. It was a real talking point. Moving on to cake. You can see that we had like a fairly firm idea with the cake, knowing that we wanted sort of pressed wildflowers that weren't necessarily dried, but we wanted fresh. So similar to the design book, but obviously very much more in keeping with our design. And then we obviously styled it all up beautifully, again with all that fruit and everything, so really in keeping with the rest of the design. So I'd say that that was quite an obvious sort of progress from the design book through to the actual wedding cake. Let's move in to the wedding breakfast design itself. So here you can see in the design book we had some good ideas. We were talking about keeping the tables rustic and potentially using some chiffon runners. There was talk of seagrass placemats. We were definitely going to use a charger, and you can see that I'd created a bit of a mock-up in the design book here itself, talking about sort of like the table placements. We talked about candles, etc. So just having a look through this design book, you can kind of sort of see that there were a good vibe of what we wanted. And now if I take you through to the actual wedding breakfast design, which is one of my absolute favourite designs ever, and it really did come to life. I think it's quite an obvious transition from the design book through to the actual final design, but it's just elevated so much more, and I was so pleased with the outcome of this. The flowers were stunning. The whole tablescape just came together so beautifully. The whole setting outside as well was just stunning. Definitely one of our favourite tablescape designs for sure, and the client absolutely loved it. So there you go, guys. This is just a little bit of a sort of a process from where we start with a design to the final image, and a little bit of insight into how we use our design book as well. That's obviously just a few bits of the design book. It's like a 24-page design book that we send over to our clients with the whole process of the whole day. It literally has all those elements that we've talked about, as well as sort of breaking down the ceremony and the drinks reception and so on. It literally includes everything. So I hope you found this helpful and inspirational, and it gives you some ideas how to pull together your design and how it might look in the end. We loved this wedding so much. If you haven't checked it out on Instagram, then absolutely go and hop over to our Instagram at Bluebird Creative and have a look at all the videos and pickies that we've got over there of this wedding. We've also got a blog, which I'll link below for you guys, where you can have a little bit more of a read up of this wedding and the suppliers and venue involved as well. Anyway, guys, I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll be back next week with some more wedding planning goodness.